Okay, so I have been dealing with the issue of radicalization of Muslims and the way how many Muslims joined ISIS. It was the work of Saudi, Qatari, Turkish secret services. So a lot of money was spent, and it was the CIA as well. I have even written articles for global research in Canada in the time. And actually, it was even Radio Free Europe and Voice of America, which was praising the so-called freedom fighters that were going to fight against the dictator Assad. Once, in the time I was in Toronto, we had a meeting with the chief police of Toronto. I think his name was Bill Blair. Probably our Canadian friend can help me in the back. And I mean, it was even the CBC of Canada which was propagating that these guys who are going to Syria, they're good guys, they're freedom fighters. So I mean, the process of radicalization of Muslims and sending them to join ISIS was a job of secret services. Now, compare the radicalization that happened to Muslims during the war against Syria in 2011-12 to what is happening now in Lebanon and in Palestine. Why Muslims from the West are not joining the fight? Why nobody is going to Lebanon to join Hezbollah? Why nobody is going to Syria? Why nobody is going to Yemen? And from this we can understand that ISIS was a creation of secret services. I mean, Abu Muhammad al-Golani or Ahmed al-Shara, who 2 days ago he was hugging with Donald Trump, he was an agent of CIA. He was trained by them, he was sent to join ISIS. His father was a member of the Egyptian Mukhabarat, and he was a Nasserist, serving to the Egyptian government until they fell out with Assad. So, I mean, when you see these jihadis with long beards and shouting Allahu Akbar and doing these things, I mean, yeah, there are many naives, there are many stupid people among them who are cheated, but their heads, I mean, it is a job of secret services. I mean, if there is any jihad today in the Muslim world, that is jihad for the liberation of Masjid al-Aqsa. Why nobody is going there? Simple. It does not interest to the West. And Abu Muhammad al-Golani, on his head, Americans had put $10 million. Suddenly, from the head of the ISIS branch in Nineveh, Iraq, he was sending suicide bombers. He was brainwashing youths and sending them in markets to go and assassinate people. Now, he is not called anymore Al-Qaeda, the emir of Al-Qaeda or ISIS. He's being called the president of Syria, even though no Syrian voted for him. He's a dictator. He made a regime change in Syria. He was held by CIA, MI6, Turkish MIT, and Mossad to topple Bashar al-Assad. Simple.
Bismillahi awwaluhu wa akhiruh. In order for jihad to be declared, I'm talking about offensive jihad, you need to have a territory over which you have control and in which Allah's name is supreme. Is there such a territory on the face of the earth today? Can anyone help me? Can anyone help me? Is there any such territory on the face of the earth today over which Muslims have control, and Allah's word is supreme. Then how can you establish jihad? Of course, there's a difference between real jihad and bogus jihad. This appears to me as more bogus jihad than real jihad. What is your opinion of Ibrahim Traore? I have not as yet studied the subject of Ibrahim Traore. I think he is Mali or Chad. Which one is it? Huh? Burkina Faso. I've decided I have to visit Burkina Faso, inshallah, before the end of this year.
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, hearkening back to the book I talked about, The Art of War, but also Miyamoto Musashi's The Book of Five Rings. And as a fighter who learned how to fight through experience, which means you have to kind of take a whooping every night. You learn the most from your mistakes. And my biggest mistake was developing a conviction at a young age. So that's the context at which I joined the Marine Corps and ended up getting sent off to a war and so on and so forth. So I ended up becoming very, very careful about convictions. But what I realized was that I was wrong about the Marine Corps, so I was very adamant, okay, what else am I wrong about? All the programming I was deprogrammed. It was like my mind became an open vessel now, whereas before I was truly indoctrinated. We're all indoctrinated to one degree or another. Like little sightless birds, we swallow everything our mother puts into our mouths, but not that which is only good and pure and true. And this is why traditions carry on. And we just accept the tradition and we don't critically think, like, is that in line with higher values and so on and so forth. What I learned was the truth. Truth is God and God is truth. The weakest point of the enemy is they lie. If you watch an interview, I've been on many interviews, and I know the tactics of my enemies, so they can't manipulate me like they would somebody who doesn't understand the game. When you speak the truth, what they'll do is they'll either try and talk over me, or I make a really solid point which deserves then invitation to, like, okay, let's explore that. Let's get into that deeper. And I could give a multitude of points of where on BBC Hard Talk in particular, but other programs as well. Most of the media that I've been interviewed by have been hostile. They're not there to reveal the truth. That's not their job. They are what I call the prostitutes of propaganda. When you control the media, when you control Hollywood, when you control the politicians, when you control the money, you even control academia, you control the mosques through money, most of them, you can tell a lie and you can get away with it. But if you're telling the truth is truly adversarial to the interests of the powers that be. So they will do everything in their power to prevent truth from being spread. So the problem for Israel is that they made the same mistake Satan made. Remember now, Satan was God's favored angel. He wasn't always this entity we know today. He was, in fact, God's favored angel. And when God gave the truth, his command to Abraham, God commanded Satan to pay deference, to pay respect. But Satan, being arrogant, refused. Why should I do that? I'm higher than he is. He's a man of clay. And so this is where Satan fell. He became a fallen angel. We all know, if we know anything, Gog and Magog, Satan, Lucifer, Satan is the top dog. He's the one that they're all answering to. They have satanic ritual sacrifices. A lot of this is being exposed now. A lot of people have been impossibly, as the Sheikh refers to it, when you're speaking about higher spiritual values, you're basically going to hit a brick wall with most people. There's so many conditioning, social engineering tactics used to prevent your ability to absorb that which is the most beautiful and true. And you combine that now, I was just referring a brother out there, there's an absolutely brilliant 1984 interview with a man named Yuri Bezmenov. He is a former KGB agent. So what is the KGB? That's the Soviet Union. What is the Soviet Union? That is the Jews. They created that. They killed all the Christians, burned down and destroyed all their churches, and they created a synagogue of Satan known as the Soviet Union, where the first law, by the way, was anti-Semitism, which was punishable by death, by the way. That's coming, by the way. In America, they're already on that path. Like, if you say that, if you even say that Israel is Jewish, that's anti-Semitic right there. Like, they're making that unlawful in America, which is a complete defiance of the First Amendment that I swore to protect and defend, the Constitution. So my point is, arrogance is a weakness, and the biggest weakness of the Zionists, the fake Jews, the ones who defied God and changed the Torah and started employing not only usury but ritual sacrifice to Moloch and satanic entities. You know, they genuinely, and this is true, this is what Satan requires. So the things that make us feel joy, like when we see our child walk for the first time, or we get married and we truly love our partner and we intend to truly, till death do us part, and to always be loyal, and then our partner, you know, does something really sweet for us. These are the types of things that give us joy. But for Satan, what gives him joy is when a child is being raped and tortured, and they're doing things like pulling out adrenochrome, where they literally torture a child, which will get the adrenaline flowing, and then they extract the adrenaline because they know that they're going to meet their mortal end. We're all going to meet our mortal end at some point, and they genuinely believe, and there's some evidence to support this. It's like an anti-aging drug, adrenochrome. They take and extract the adrenaline from a child which is in the highest stages of trauma, and they extract that, and then they take that in. They're also vampires, literally. And like the vampire cannot just come into your home. He doesn't break into your home. He will charm you. You know, he will ply you. He will get you to invite him into your home, at which point you're done for. Satan is the same thing. Same thing. And this is the shield that we have. I've experienced it. In theory, if I'm my enemies, like if I'm my enemies and I see this guy Ken O'Keefe, I'm like, to my people, my servants, I'm like, yeah, take care of it. They could hire mercenaries. They have. They killed me, but I came back. Even my enemies will say that, oh, if he were real, oh, he's fake, he's a shill. If he was real, then if he wasn't a fraud, if he wasn't a thief, they would have killed him long ago. And it's like, wait a second, I got to become a martyr to prove that I'm good? The way that I'm able to shield myself is with the truth and acting in service and sacrifice. Their biggest pitfall is arrogance, like Satan. So, you idiots, I know that you consider the Palestinians, and the rest of us, by the way, all the Goyim, you consider us all animals. Your holy book says that you have the right to rape us, to steal from us, to enslave us. If there was anything like that in the Quran, do you not think that might have made the news? So they have to use fake Islam to try and justify their lies. It's all lies. Everything they have is lies. We've seen that break down now. The media, even BBC, has started to reverse itself. Even politicians. Trump is even playing PR games right now so that he doesn't look like a servant to the Jewish state, which he is. Their arrogance has manifested in the form of saying flat out, Galant, Mr. War Criminal, we're dealing with human animals. and we will treat them as such. You don't say that publicly, you idiots. You go ahead and say that and preach that amongst yourselves, but you don't announce that. You don't. But you can still everybody should know that. Everybody should, but they still control the media, don't they? They still control the media. So their weakness is the truth. And the weapon that I wield is the sword of truth. So everybody that is using the best of their means to expose the truth is a threat to them. And that's why they will take the truth tellers. What happens to them? Most of them get martyred, or they don't get the attention that they deserve. They don't get the respect they deserve. This is not the world we live in. The most noble amongst us, the most virtuous, the wisest of us, these should be our leaders. In a better world, these will be our leaders. But instead, our leaders are corrupt. Many of them are compromised and they're on videotape raping children or participating in a satanic ritual where they literally stick a dagger into a baby to join the club. As one very high-level banker who wanted to recruit somebody who was making them a lot of money said, you need to put your conscience in the deep freezer. So anyway, their biggest weakness is their arrogance. They've revealed themselves. They used to get away with all this, oh, Israel has a right to defend itself, the Palestinians are all terrorists. That's broken down now because of their arrogance, and we need to exploit that.
Okay, this question is for Dr. Olsey. Why did Herzl consider Argentina as a possible territory for the state of Israel, for the Jews to come? Theodor Herzl, why did Theodor Herzl consider Argentina as a possible territory for the state of Israel?
Well, Theodor Herzl considered Argentina as a possible site for creating the state of Israel, because in that time Argentina was empty and open to immigration. And it was not only Argentina, there were many countries and places that were suggested for the establishment of State of Israel. From Madagascar to Canada, even Albania, where I originally come from. I think I mentioned Uganda, Tanzania. I mean, the great powers of Europe, they suggested to the Jewish bankers different places where they could establish their colonies. And we have to understand that this practice was not something unheard in the 19th century. We know, for example, how the colonial powers, the British, the French, the Russians, they sent settlers everywhere. For example, here in Malaysia, they brought Chinese and Indians. In South Africa, they sent Indians. So, I mean, this was a normal colonial practice, but the group which prevailed was the group of those Jews who were believing that the best place for them to establish their colony was Palestine. We have to understand something, that the early Zionists, people like Chaim Weizmann and Theodor Herzl, they were mainly agents of the British Empire. And if we study the history of Zionism, we can differentiate different groups of Zionists. So you have those Zionists who were described as agents of London by extremist Zionists like Vladimir Jabotinsky. I mean, Netanyahu today and the Likud party, they are descendants of Vladimir Jabotinsky. He was the leader of the so-called revisionist Zionists. Then you had the labor Zionists, or those who were known as communists or socialists. The first Jewish settlements which will be established in Palestine during the British colonization of Mandate Palestine, the first settlers, they were not crazy Zionists, like people like Netanyahu or Smotrich or Ben Gvir and others that you have. David Ben-Gurion, who will be the leader of the Jewish community in Palestine, he was a Marxist-Leninist. He was friend of Lenin. And one of the reasons that the Soviet Union under Stalin will be the first state to officially recognize the establishment of Israel was that the Soviets were hoping that Israel will become another communist or Soviet republic. So, I mean, the question of Zionism is very complicated. These people, they didn't know where they are going to and where they were heading to. And even the British, when they decided to bring Jewish settlers in Mandate Palestine, I mean, one of the reasons why they brought them there was because they wanted to have a hostile presence near to the Suez Channel. So they were afraid of the Arabs, they didn't know what the future will bring, they were fearing that probably the Ottomans could come back, and in order to make sure that the Ottomans or any Muslim power is not going to control Suez Canal, they brought these Jewish settlers. If you see the history of the early Jewish settlements in Palestine, well, they were, I mean, many of them, they were communists, they were believing in social Darwinism, but they were not messianic like those who rule Israel today. Those who rule today Israel, they are messianic. And if you see, the first Jewish settlements in Palestine were not made in what they call as Judea and Samaria, which is West Bank. The first Jewish settlements were established in the coastal areas of Palestine, places like Tel Aviv, like Haifa. Today we have a new wave of Zionism. They are known as the Likudniks, or members of the Likud party. And these people, they believe that finally Allah will forgive the Jews and will bring the Messiah for their redemption. But there is no forgiveness for Jews. Wherever they go, they bring only curse behind.
Here's a question. The phrase Akhirul Zaman, or the end time, and Malhama, or the Great War, are on our lips almost daily. It doesn't seem that peace will stand a chance. Why should we avoid this great war if indeed it is prophesied to happen? Should all parties just push the button and get on with it? I'm disappointed in this question. Number one, I don't know who is avoiding the Great War. We are not a people who are afraid to die. No. Whenever death comes, we recognize that it is ordained by Allah. Life and death are in His hands. And we accept death whenever it comes. So we are not a people to run away from death. And therefore, to run away from a great war or to seek to hide from a great war. Check, where can I go to be safe? I get the emails, where can I go to be safe? No, that's not the way to live. Proceed with your life. Yes, you have a duty to seek to protect your wives and children. And so we've been saying, for the longest while, there are many who will die in the Great War, but there are those who will survive. We have the evidence that all of mankind will not perish in the Great War. And the last place you want to be when the Great War takes place is to be in a city, because cities cannot provide food and cannot provide water and cannot provide fuel for cooking. So the place to be when the Great War takes place is in the remote countryside. But I've said it so many times for the last 20, 30 years that you're probably tired of hearing me. Number two, should all parties not push the button? Excuse me. We are not a people who want war. When the horrendous act of terrorism, the cowardly act of terrorism took place in Kashmir about a week or two ago, and we did not know who did it, we said there can be 4 possible candidates. Either it was India responsible, and it was a false flag attack, or it was Pakistan or some jihadi force in Pakistan which was responsible, or it was Kashmiri freedom fighters, or finally it was someone else. Whoever it may be has to be connected with Israel. This was our analysis. And we asked Allah, we prayed to Him, and we continue to pray to Him to kindly help us to identify who are those who are responsible. Whoever they were who were responsible clearly wanted to provoke war between India and Pakistan, which could possibly become nuclear war. Why would anyone want to provoke nuclear war between India and Pakistan? Number one, to take the heat off Ukraine, because Ukraine is collapsing and they don't want to face defeat in Ukraine. Number two, to try to provoke war in which China will face India, a trap for China. Number three, to try to provoke a war through which Pakistan could be denuclearized. Number four, to try to provoke a war in which India will be able to occupy even more of Kashmir. And so we said the most likely candidate would be a 4th party, not India, not Pakistan, but a 4th party. Could be the CIA, could be the Israeli Mossad. Good. We then said further, after India, which had no evidence and provided no evidence that Pakistan had done it, and after Pakistan had very sensibly asked for an independent commission of inquiry to be established, India committed an act of aggression by launching missiles on Pakistan. What should a Muslim do in such a situation? Since this ummah has lost contact with knowledge, our duty is to remind you of knowledge. This is what our Prophet said. I got my assistant or chairman, Hasbullah, go and search for the hadith for me. And he found it, because I had read it in a book written by the famous Egyptian legal scholar, Sheikh Muhammad Abu Zahra, and he wrote it in the 1920s. And he quoted this hadith in the book, that if you face the enemy on the battlefield and you cannot prevent the start of hostilities, because we are a people who prefer peace to war. And it is only when we have explored and exhausted all possible peaceful means to avoid a war, only then do we resort to fighting. I don't know if the Chief of Staff of the Pakistan Armed Forces has anything less than a passing acquaintance with the law of war in Islam. It is only after you have explored and exhausted all possible peaceful means to resolve the problem before you can resort to fighting. So our Prophet said, if you cannot prevent the fighting, he said, wait until they attack you. And when they attack you, remember, this is not Imran talking. No. So don't lambast me and call me names. This is Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam talking. Whether you like it or you don't, these are the words of the Prophet. Most people won't like it. They have more knowledge than the Prophet himself. Wait until they begin to fight, which is what India did. And when they fight, wait until they kill one of your men. India killed a couple people in that first attack. Then place the body in front of them, said Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. I have to teach this ummah because they forgot it. Put the body in front of them and ask them, is there no better way to resolve our problem than by fighting? This is the commanding heights of morality in the diplomacy of warfare. This is the commanding heights of morality in the diplomacy of warfare. But the Pakistani people have said goodbye to knowledge. They want war. They're hungry for war. We must fight India. Teach them a lesson. But you forget your own religion. You forget your own religion. And so this is the way we should try to respond to the Great War. Not that we want the war, not that we are hungry for the war, but that we are a people who will always try whatever we can to avoid war. And when we can no longer avoid war, and the war begins, place a dead body in front of the aggressor and ask, Is there no better way to resolve our problem?
This is why I love listening to the Sheikh. That is so beautiful. You know, like in the case of Israel, there is no question, so I'm ready to fight. But in the case of what is happening right now, I couldn't, like, I did not know that. I did not know that, now I do. That is beautiful. That is a noble fight right there. If you must fight, beautiful. So the question is, we see many videos and individual Palestinians on YouTube seeking donations either through PayPal or GoFundMe and WhatsApp. Does the money donated via the platforms reach the people since there is total blockade in Gaza? And are these videos and requests for donations genuine for some area, WhatsApp? So, or are they actually Israeli? That's the problem. And there is no easy solution. I get a lot of these, you know, and I wish I could do more, but I don't have the resources to be able to go and do what you need to do. If you feel, and Islam would call on you, and you know, Christianity would call on you to help wherever you can. But if you misplace that assistance and help and end up potentially paying an Israeli who's laughing, well, your intentions may have been good, but the end result is you've just enriched an Israeli. Now, I don't say this, and that is documented. This is happening, for sure. However, it would be wrong to take the pessimistic view and just assume that what you're getting is fake. The only real answer is to be able to check and validate somehow. The way that you would do that is not going to be easy again. In the case of a charity, we need to look at their financial reports. How much of the money is going to administrative fees? In England is based on charity, by the way. They believe in their godless reality that, oh, we can be party to any kind of crime, we can accept any corruption within our government, but if we give a little bit of our money to a charity, we're going to buy our first-class ticket to heaven. Honestly, like really, because deep down they don't feel good. They don't. I don't care how much you delude yourselves with your Instagram posts pretending otherwise, you're not happy. But those are easy. You must look at the charity. You must look at the back end. They have to file reports. And if their administrative costs are unjustifiably high, and in the case of so many English charities, I guarantee you, you're going to be talking about 50, 60, 70% admin, which means a ridiculously small amount is getting to them. It's basically, it's a big graft. It's a big con. But the individual ones, I know that some of these are genuine. I know. I'm sure of it. I don't have the time, and if I had a bigger staff, then I would dedicate a staff. Check each one. Check each one. I need to have some sort of communication with the person. I need to validate that you are a real person. There would be some ways to, with IT skills, to be able to see where is the transmission if this person purports to be in Gaza. I'm sure there's a way. I don't know, I'm not Mr. IT, but there are people that are qualified that would be able to see, like, well, and even there are VPNs and there's ways to present yourself like you're coming from Palestine, but blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is, if you really care, then you're going to have to invest further time to try and validate whether or not this is a real deal. And, by the way, if you find out that it's not a real deal, then you have a positive purpose anyway, because then you can publicize. And if you really want to dig deeper, you might be able to track who it's coming from. And if it was an Israeli, you might be able to do what's now happening. There's an organization in the UK that's now calling out publicly war criminals. So these idiots who are arrogant, these IDF guys who've been bragging about and we see them wearing like women's lingerie and stuff and mocking the Palestinians and all of this. Like, that's being used now to call them out, to name and shame them publicly, and also insist that governments are actually arresting them. And this is happening. This is beginning to happen. So anyway, my point is, if you do your due diligence because you're just really touched by what you see and you think it might be true, take the time to do a little research beyond what I'm telling you right now, because there are ways that you would be able to verify. And whether it's positive or whether it's negative, obviously it's positive, then give what you can. You've done a good deed. God is watching. And if it's a fraud, expose it. Again, God is watching. You've done a good deed. So don't take the pessimist view, but don't take the foolish view, is my advice. And if you do find a way to do what I'm advising you to do, like the IT skills on the back end and everything, or if somebody actually would like to maybe initiate a team that would be able to start processing these things that we're getting, so that we could actually like perhaps start creating a stamp, like this has been verified and validated, this is real. That would be good. Like, this is something that could be done. That'd be really brilliant. So whoever asked the question, thank you for asking, and I bet a lot of you, you're all getting this. So this is a really important point, and thank you for inspiring me to think like, yeah, there you go. Maybe I can plant a seed out there, and that seed germinates, and then it turns into something where we could verify, and we could actually get more money direct to them. I send money to my family in Gaza, have been before October 7th. And I'm telling you, it has been a lifeline, but it's almost impossible to get any money in. And even if they do have money, they don't have any flour, they don't have anything. They've shut down all the bakeries. They can't even buy anything. I think the last price I found, actually, I think, what was it? Oh my God, it was ungodly. A bag of flour that used to cost, that would feed a family, the family that I'm helping, like a bag of flour used to be like $25, and that was even after it had started going up. The last I was told, which was over a month ago, or like 2 months ago, it was like $125, so 5 times. So now, what was $25 a week is now $125 a week, and that's for a family. And I know my family are given to other people. This is the kind of thing the Palestinians are doing. Even though they're starving, like what little they have, they're sharing it even with people, whatever, the child who's lost his parents and all of this. I hope somebody runs with this. I really do. And if you find anything that actually is doing this already, like validating these crowd funds and whatnot, because the crowd funds are corrupt, the platforms are corrupt, like really. But if we could verify, that would be so good, I swear. If somebody does that, they're doing a high service. Really, in the eyes of Allah, that's going to be a high service. Please, if you have any further interest or know anything beyond what I've already said, please come to me. I want to know, because I don't like it. It hurts me. It pains me that I have to just ignore it. I don't have the time. I really don't. So, great question. Thank you.
So there is a question for me. Is there any connection between the Khazars and the Ottoman Empire? No. I mean, the Khazars are... the Ottomans, they were a mixture of different ethnic groups, and the thing that united the Ottomans was the royal family of Osman Ghazi, who even established the Ottoman state, which later, after Mehmet Fatih will take Constantinople, they will inherit the Byzantine Empire. The Khazars, they were different people, and the Khazars, we learn about the existence of Khazars from the 8th and 19th century Muslim scholars. We have scholars like Al-Maqdisi, or even the Rihla of Ibn Fadlan. I think Hollywood made even a movie called The 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas. And even though the movie doesn't portray the real stories, is mostly a fiction, maybe like 50% of this movie is true. And Antonio Banderas, who plays Ibn Fadlan in this movie, he was the ambassador of the Abbasid Caliph who was sent to the Muslims of Tatarstan. Tatarstan is one of the republics of Russia today with capital in Kazan. So we know about the existence of the Khazars long before the formation of the Ottomans. And the Khazars, they were very powerful people. They had their own empire. So at the time when Islam expanded to the areas that we know nowadays as India, Pakistan, Maghreb, the Khazars, they had their own empire between the Caspian Sea, and the Arabs, they were calling the Caspian Sea Bahr al-Khazar, which means the Sea of the Khazars, to the borders of Kiev in nowadays Ukraine. So in few words, I mean, we can say that most Ukrainians nowadays, they are descendants of the Khazars, so they are two different people. And, but the importance of the Ottomans starts in the 15th century when Mehmed captures Constantinople, and in the 16th century when Selim I will invade Egypt, Cairo, and he will claim the title of the Caliph from the last Abbasid Caliph. And moreover, I mean, the Khazars, with the creation of the Russian monarchy and the Christianization of the Slavs, they are going to lose their identity. I mean, they will be simply serfs, peasants. There will be nobody. But with the coming of Tsar Alexander II, when he's going to decide to emancipate the serfs and allow the peasants to move to cities, this will be the time that we will have the Khazars, or otherwise known as the Ashkenazi Jews, which will become a big problem for the monarchies of Europe. And today, most of the Jews that we know in the West, people from the leaders of Israel to, I mean, like Benjamin Netanyahu, to Golda Meir, to the ex-Secretary of State of United States, Antony Blinken, Victoria Nuland, and what have you. These are Jews of this, what the Russians will call the Pale Settlement, which was the territories of the Russian Empire from Donbass or Novorussia to Poland. This is the place where you had millions of white Khazars, Jews living, and with the breakup of the Russian Empire, many of them are going to move to the United States and Western Europe.
What is the role of Afghanistan in all of this, especially in relation to the Prophet's hadith about the army from Khorasan which will liberate Jerusalem? Do you think the current Taliban government lives up to that standard? Answer. I consider the women of Afghanistan to be the best women that we have in the world of Islam, because they produce sons who fought the British and defeated them, fought the Soviet Union and defeated them, and then fought the Yankees and defeated them. And so Afghanistan knows how to fight. And so too the Muslims of the Holy Land of Palestine, they know how to fight. Even if they have no food and no clothing and no shelter, they still know how to fight Israel. But fighting does not require only power. Fighting also requires other things. It requires you to have an economy in which you are not dependent on others. But most of all, you need knowledge when you fight. And Afghanistan does not have that knowledge. And the Islamic resistance in Palestine, in the Holy Land, doesn't have that knowledge, because Israel took them for a ride in October of 23. Oh yes, Israel set a trap for them and they walked into the trap. So while we commend Afghanistan for their capacity to fight, they are not the intellectual leaders. The intellectual leaders of this ummah are still to come. Our Prophet said, Allah's blessings be upon him, he said, my ummah, meaning my community, is like the rain. I do not know which shower is better, the first or the last. So there's a last shower of rain which is to come. That last shower of rain will have its military component, and we already have it in Afghanistan. We have it in an Iran which has successfully liberated itself to such an extent that Iran could fire hundreds of missiles on Israel. So we do have the military component, the people who have capacity to fight, but we do not as yet have the intellectual component. And Afghanistan certainly doesn't have that. I could continue with my answer and show you 25 years ago when I was in New York, and there was an Islamic Emirate in Afghanistan, and they had an ambassador in New York, and he was a learned man, a cultured man, a cultivated man, and he and I were friends. And he would send my tapes, the audio tapes, to Kabul. And the answer came from Kabul, we do not agree with Imran Hussein. When I argued that the money that you're using is bogus, it's fraudulent, it's haram. Kabul said, no, we don't agree with you. I said, Afghanistan should not be seeking membership in the United Nations. No, they disagreed with me. No, we have the right to be represented in the United Nations. Just now someone asked about jihad. You can only fight jihad when you have control over territory. And in that territory, Allah's law is supreme. And I asked the question, is there any part of the earth today where Allah's law is supreme? When we begin to fight, we don't have ceasefire. No. If the enemy asks for peace, then we are obliged to reciprocate. Did India ask Pakistan for peace? Did Modi say, I want a ceasefire? No. So why did Pakistan stop fighting? If you are so lusting for war, If you love to fight, why did you stop fighting? Who should stop you from fighting? The Security Council of the United Nations. Once you are a member of the United Nations organization, you have given your word that Allah's law is no longer supreme. It is the Security Council is supreme. And if the Security Council orders you to stop fighting, you have to stop fighting. Is that Allah's law being supreme? No. Trump was the one who intervened. And Trump saved Pakistan. Trump saved Pakistan because Trump was able to force India to agree to a ceasefire. They should thank Trump for that. But that's not the way we fight. We try to explore and exhaust all possible peaceful means to resolve the problem. And only when we have explored and exhausted all possible peaceful means to resolve the problem, then we fight. But when we start fighting, we don't stop. Not at all. No ceasefire. Unless the enemy wants peace. When the enemy asks for peace, we have a responsibility to respond. So we don't have the knowledge anymore, and we don't have the authority anymore where Allah's law is supreme. Is Dajjal still sitting on the throne of Suleiman and in control of the metaphysical world of jinns? Yes, he will continue as a judge. This is my opinion. And when I give an opinion, you must not accept my opinion unless you are convinced that I am correct. When I give an opinion, only Allah can confirm that an interpretation is correct. Only Allah can confirm. So when Allah speaks in the Quran of a Jasad sitting on Suleiman's throne, alayhi salam, my interpretation of the Quran, no one has ever given this interpretation before, it's the first time. My interpretation of the Jasad is that it is Dajjal. And he will continue to sit on the throne and to use the minsa'a of the staff to control backward and forward movement in time, and hence to be able to deceive the jinn who have been ordered to work for Suleiman, to believe that Suleiman is still alive. But when Dabbatul Ard consumes the minsa of the stuff, and Dabbatul Ard is not someone or something which speaks, to kallimuhum, one more time, to kallimuhum. No, the tashkil is bogus. Rather, it is taklimuhum. When Dabbatul Ard injures, causes injury by consuming the minsa of the stuff, only then will the jasad lose control over the stuff to be able to continue to deceive the jinn. At that time, Israel will no longer have the support and assistance of the jinn. And I don't know when Dajjal will stop sitting on the throne, but obviously when the Great War takes place, then our Prophet prophesied 7 years after the Great War, a Muslim army will conquer Constantinople. When I quoted this hadith to Foreign Minister, the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, he was happy. He stopped me. He said, I want to commend you for using the name Constantinople. He was happy. So after the conquest of Constantinople, which is still to come, the next event after that is the Khuruj of Dajjal. The Dajjal will now appear in human form. So when Dajjal appears in human form, of course, he's no longer sitting on the throne. Let me first, I want to say how happy I am to see so many from Bangladesh. You travel, so many of you travel from Bangladesh to attend this session. I'm proud and happy. So many travel from India to travel to here to be in this seminar. I'm proud, I'm happy. I hardly see anyone from Pakistan. Anyone from Pakistan? Anyone from Pakistan? One, two. Only two from Pakistan. But so many from Bangladesh and so many from India. I'm very happy. We have someone from Sweden, we have from New Zealand, we have from Brazil, and many other countries present here today. And I want to tell you how happy I am that you are here.
Okay, so there is a question about the ethnic cleansing of Bosnia and who actually started that and why. Now, the war in Bosnia, the war in Kosovo, the war in Chechnya, they were all part of the disintegration of the communist bloc, Soviet Union and Yugoslavia. So, I mean, who started it? What West used against the communist bloc was the ideology of nationalism. We will see that when the Soviet Union collapsed, the ideology of communism was attacked, and the best enemy of the socialism was nationalism. So throughout the Soviet bloc, we had Russian, the conflict today in Ukraine is about nationalism, is a Ukrainian nationalism. So the same thing happened even in Yugoslavia. The Americans, they were smart enough to push everyone to fight against everyone. So the Bosnians against the Serbs against the Croats against the Bosnians, the Albanians of Kosovo against the Serbs, and so forth. In 1990s, we, the people of Eastern Europe, we were tired from communism. We were led to believe that if we dismantle our countries, our lives are going to be improved. But the end result that we see nowadays is the opposite. People had much better lives when they were living in Soviet Union or when they were living in ex-Yugoslavia than what they have today. If you see what has happened to the Balkans and Eastern Europe since the collapse of Soviet Union, we have massive depopulation of Eastern Europe. You have millions of Ukrainians, of Poles, of Romanians, of Serbs, of Bosnians, who no longer live in their home countries. They ended up as refugees in Germany, Canada, United States. If you visit Canada, you will find some of the best Yugoslav scientists. You'll find even the personal pilot of Tito, who works as taxi drivers in Toronto. So, I mean, what was the reason for the conflict in Bosnia? The reason was nationalism. So you had the clash of three nationalisms: the Serbian, the Croat, and the Bosnian. The end result was the destruction of the three. Many people who lived during the era of communism, they regret that era because the socialist system, especially Yugoslav socialism, was quite successful. People had their own homes, free health care, they had cars, guaranteed job, things that nowadays are things of the past. Like the Zionists, they use nationalism to create conflicts in the Arab world and in the Muslim world, where they make the Turks to go against the Arabs to go against the Kurds to go against the Turks, and so forth. Their strategy has always been divide and rule. But according to Islam, we believe that there is no difference between different ethnic groups. We are all the children of Adam, and we should enjoy life in this planet and live with each other. Yeah, I mean, the war in Bosnia was very tragic for Bosnian Muslims. Many were killed. The same was in Kosovo, but if you see what happened to these countries after the end of the conflict, is a much greater disaster. People have left. People have left Albania, have left Kosovo, have left Serbia and Bosnia, and they have ended up as construction workers in Germany, Canada, and the United States. I don't think that these conflicts were good. I don't think that the collapse of the Soviet Union and Yugoslavia was something good. Yes, many of these regimes, they were oppressive, they were believing in social Darwinism, they were atheists, but what the Americans did to the people of Eastern Europe was a major tragedy, like exactly what they did to the Arab world, what they did to Iraq, to Syria, to Libya, to Yemen, and what have you. Why do we have so many Syrians here in Kuala Lumpur as refugees? Why are they here? They miss their country. Why they came here? Because the West destroyed them. Simple.
There was a second question here, which I have a quick answer because I know there's quite a few more questions, so hopefully we can get to them. It's very disturbing and mind-boggling to hear about Palestinian men being raped, especially in prisons. No one seems to be spared. Even prominent actors. What is the reason for this depravity? They're raping women too. That's normal. That's been going on for a long time, for the whole time. But yeah, as a man, believe me, I've contemplated, I know what my enemies will do to me if they get their hands on me. I know, it ain't gonna be pretty, that's for sure. And I mean, I know Palestinians, if you haven't seen it, videos, like, you can see it written on their faces. My family in Gaza actually knew a gentleman who, they had a picture of him, you know, back in the day, and then he was in Israeli custody, and he came back. You didn't even need to hear any words. You looked at him, and you could just see a man who was completely wrecked, totally wrecked. His manhood was stolen, which for a man, I mean, aside from homosexuals, this is like the worst thing that could happen to you, even worse than death. I remember when I sought political asylum, I actually cited a case of a young man in America who lived in a state where he had 3 strikes and you're out, which meant he had 3 DUIs, drunk driving. The third offense, these were felonies in that state. And the third offense meant he was going to prison for years, like for life actually. But I mean, he got raped. And when he first got raped, he fought, but he just ended up getting beat and then raped. And eventually, while fighting back, he eventually just gave up. And so he just laid down and just accepted that he was getting raped. And he talked about this and how he didn't know if he could ever forgive himself. And I actually cited that article when I sought political asylum to say, like, this is what is going to happen to me if I had already been targeted, and like, I know what they're going to do to me. So it is really horrendous. But in order to understand it, again, you need to enter into the mind of your enemy. You need to understand your enemy. The mind of a psychopath, the mind of a servant of Satan. A good servant of Satan will do exactly what the Israelis are doing in the prisons. While this is offensive and it's shocking, that's because you're a human being and you've not lost your humanity, and you certainly haven't lost God. But if you don't have God, if you have the opposite of God, if you have Satan and you were serving Satan, and you yourself are a narcissist, then this is pleasurable for you. And you would even take pleasure in watching your mates rape someone else. And this is why you would riot for the right to rape. It doesn't make sense unless you have the ability to enter the mind of your opponent. And that's what it requires. You have to enter the mind of psychopathy. You literally have to enter that mind in order to understand what it is you're fighting. And it's not easy, quite frankly. And a lot of people, for various reasons, will never take the time to truly do this because it is painful. You actually have to endure a level of individual trauma yourself to enter this psycho mind. And there is a danger that if you go too deep into it, then it will start to permeate you yourself. So when you go down the proverbial rabbit hole, you have to be really strong. This is you have to look at the devil. You have to get into the devil's home in order to understand, fully understand what your enemy, what makes them tick, as it were. But it takes a strong individual, man or woman, to be able to go deep into that rabbit hole and not become that which you fight. And this is another challenge of war. There's a level of where you have to become somewhat of a psychopath. There's no room. I mean, there is Islamic law. I completely agree with it. It's absolutely beautiful. The laws of war, absolutely beautiful. Better than the 4 Geneva Conventions by a long yard, a long, long way. But I can still tell you, that's only possible if you're serving God. The Americans commit suicide to the tune of 22 a day. If you fought a noble war, you don't come home and commit suicide. The German soldiers were not coming home and committing suicide. Those who fight the noble fight do not come home and commit suicide, even though they had to kill a lot of people. But if you're a psycho and you do that, and there's any little bit of humanity in you, you can't take the guilt, you don't tell your friends, you go start drinking, become an alcoholic, you might be homeless, and then eventually you off yourself. You need to enter that mind in order to understand it, but you need to be strong as well. So for them, raping Palestinians, and you Goyim and their Talmud enshrines it in their spiritual teachings, it's joyful for them, and they're doing good for their master. So it makes perfect sense.
Okay, we can have your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My question actually is on today's subject. First of all, to Sheikh, the Quran has declared the emergence of Pharaoh.
The Quran has declared?
Accordingly, the Quran has declared the emergence of the Pharaoh's body and is a sign for people who come like them. The history also has proven the operation for the past 100 years. Why do we Muslims till now do not match these to create a new world order, number one? Why have we not? Okay. Number two,
Carry on, carry on.
Number two is a general question. Okay.
Just, everyone can hear.
Okay.
Carry on.
So the first question was, why do we Muslims till now do not match this and to create a new world order? Why have we not matched it? Okay. Where we have failed, and Muslims, we call ourselves Muslims, but we have still not, where did we go wrong to allow this Zionist movement? Okay, why are we not doing anything to create this new world order? And where have we gone wrong to allow this Zionist movement? Okay. Sorry, I would also like to commend Mr. Ken for his courage and his humanity, his guts to come out and talk and stand up for the Muslims. Thank you, Mr. Ken. And also, I think our beloved Sheikh Imran Hossain has not been given importance enough, and he has not been recognized enough. I'm from a young boy to an old boy. I'm seeing him, and I think he has not been given enough importance. His words have not been given enough weightage by the Muslims. Inshallah, I hope we will take more a genuine interest in his subjects. Thank you.
The Quran has declared that when the body of Pharaoh re-emerges, it would be a sign for a people to come after him. That's what the Quran says. History has proven oppression for the past 100 years or more. Why do the Muslims until now do not match them to create a new world order? First of all, there are two subjects here, not one. The prophecy of the Quran is that when the body of Pharaoh is discovered, it will function as a sign for a people to come after him. Question, what is the sign? Our answer, and Allah knows best, is that the sign is that there will be a people who will live the way Pharaoh lived and who will die the way Pharaoh died. This is our answer, but no one has given this explanation before of the Quran. This is the first time. How did Pharaoh live? Number one, he was a relentless oppressor. And so when the body of Pharaoh is discovered and the Zionist movement is established at the same time, the implication is that the Zionists and their supporters are going to be relentless oppressors like Pharaoh. Number two, that Pharaoh rejected the truth which has come from the Lord God through the prophet Moses, Musa alayhi salam. And the Zionists similarly would reject the Quran, reject the truth which has come in the Quran, and the same Quran that Vladimir Putin kisses in public. That same Quran, the Zionists will reject it the way Pharaoh rejected the truth. And finally, when the time came for the truth to eventually become triumphant, then Allah intervened in history. Muhammad Iqbal knew nothing about this subject. When I meet with Muhammad Iqbal in another world, I would recognize him as my teacher. I would honor him and respect him as a great, great scholar. But I'll have to share with him, Dr. Iqbal, you had no eschatology, none. You did not recognize that after Nabi Muhammad, Allah's blessing be upon him, was sent as the last prophet, you did not recognize that there would be any more divine interventions in history. This is as plain as daylight in his major scholarly work. I don't care if he says something else is in poetry. His scholarship is here, not there. This is his major work of scholarship that no Pakistani reads. Every Pakistani reads his poetry. And when I come with the reconstruction for the first time, and I point out that here is what Iqbal is saying, that there will be no further divine interventions in history in the form of a prophet or someone less than a prophet after Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Iqbal rejected all of this. So Iqbal does not recognize that Nabi Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, he came, he left, and he would return one day. There is abundant evidence in the Quran that Jesus will return. But Iqbal did not study the Quran properly. And so you'll find no evidence at all in Iqbal, none, that there is a divine intervention to come. Like there was a divine intervention when the water parted in the Red Sea. And Moses, Nabi Musa alayhi salam, and the Israelite people were able to pass through the Red Sea. And when Pharaoh and his army attempted to pass, the waters came down and they were drowned. Similarly, there is a divine intervention to occur again in history. Iqbal knew nothing about it, nothing. That Nabi Isa alayhi salam is to come back. But when he is to return, Allah says, I taught him the Quran. Why would Allah teach the Quran to Nabi Isa alayhi salam when the Quran will not be revealed for another 600 years? There is a need to think, but today it is haram to think. But if you learn to think, you will understand that history will repeat itself. That there is a moment coming in time similar to the parting of the Red Sea. This is what the Quran is saying. A people who will live the way Pharaoh lived will die the way Pharaoh died. And so when Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns, when Jesus returns, that's goodbye. Goodbye. I was addressing a gathering of Jews in a synagogue in the United States once upon a time. And when I said that Jesus will return, and when he returns, you will have to accept him as the Messiah, the same way that Pharaoh accepted underneath the water that he is not God and the true God is the God of Moses. When I was finished with my lecture, the Jews surrounded me, one solitary Muslim, with all the Jews surrounding me. Why must we have to accept him as the Messiah when we reject him? I said, on that day, the veils will be removed from your eyes, and you'll be able to see the truth that you cannot see now. So they will die at that time accepting Jesus as the Messiah, but it'll do no good to them. And like Pharaoh, they'll go into the hellfire. And so this is the implication of the verse of the Quran in Surah to Yunus concerning the death of Pharaoh. Why do the Muslims until now do not create a new world order? Obviously, you have less than a passing acquaintance with my scholarship, whoever wrote this. If you are acquainted with my scholarship, which is Islamic eschatology, you will know that Gog and Magog have been released. But Iqbal also said it. Are you aware of that? Khul gaye. Khul gaye means released. Khul gaye Ya'juj or Ma'juj ke lashkar tamam. All the armed forces of Gog and Magog have been released, said Iqbal. Chashme Muslim, the attention of the Muslim, Dekhale must now be directed. Tafsir, harfi yansirun. Direct your attention, says Iqbal, to those two verses of Surah Al-Anbiya which end with the word yansirun. Has any Pakistani done what Iqbal asked them to do more than 100 years ago? This is in Urdu. This is poetry, not Iqbal's reconstruction. No. So because Gog and Magog now control power in the world, this ummah cannot restore the Khilafah state.
Maulana, it's interesting that you mentioned this. The Irish poet W.B. Yeats, in his poem The Second Coming, written in 1919 after the Balfour Declaration, he said in the poem, the last two lines of the poem, "And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born." So, this Irishman sitting here with us, for some reason, yeah? For some reason, an Irish poet could see the developments happening in the Holy Land, that he said, "And what rough beast is going to appear." He was probably referring to Dajjal, no? Because the poem was entitled The Second Coming. Dr. Olsey, you'd like to take the question that I sent you? No. Okay. Maulana, here's another question for you about the research work you mentioned in the talk.
You mentioned about the research of history from 1897 until the return of the Messiah in time. What are the necessary steps for such type of research? Are there any reference books you can suggest? How can we benefit the Ummah with this research? Send me an email, whoever it is, and I will help you, inshallah. to respond to the Zionist movement's agenda, what role should young mothers play in raising your children? Good question. Good question. Number one, when the child is 7 years of age, by that time the child should be able to recite anywhere from the Quran. By the time the child is 10 years of age, the child should be reciting the whole Quran from cover to cover. If you need to be reminded, let me remind you, the memory of a child is phenomenal. None of us can match the memory of a child. So you must exploit that phenomenal memory of your child. When that child is reciting the Quran from cover to cover every lunar month, from the age of 10, you are building a foundation that will produce something phenomenal in years to come. But now, it is more important that my child must go to an English medium school. We will speak Bangla only to the servant. We speak Urdu only to the servants. But the children must learn English. We will speak Malay only to the servants. But the children must learn English. And when our child shows exceptional ability, we must send them to the United States and Britain so they become a doctor, and a medical doctor, and an engineer. Who wants to send their child to become a scholar like Imran? Who is so stupid? I gave up a career in the diplomatic service. I gave up a career in the diplomatic service, gave up my job, went back to Pakistan to serve, to teach in the same institution which trained me. Every Pakistani told me, "You're a fool. Only a fool would give up a job in the foreign ministry to become a mullah." That's what the Pakistanis told me. No. When your child has that love for the Quran in his heart, because he's reciting the Quran every month from cover to cover, your child can one day become an illustrious scholar of the Quran. That's my advice to you.
Can we consider Tel Aviv as the satanic worship center of the world? Do you have any direct experience with the Luciferian phallic worship cult? I actually have an answer that if I was speaking in normal company, in my normal, like, younger, vulgar self, I would give you a story that would, actually be direct experience with the satanic phallic cult. So I'm going to put it in the most censored language I can. I actually went to Israel in 2005, which was kind of funny because I had just done something called the Human Shield Action to Iraq, which got international attention. The first BBC Hard Talk interview I did was about this. Basically, I put forward the argument that all of your protests and petitions weren't going to do a damn thing to stop the invasion of Iraq. And what we needed to do was use this disparity between the way we value life, i.e. the Palestinians' lives or Arab lives, and a lot of other people's lives, but especially dark-skinned people's lives don't mean anything. You don't count in terms of the way the world measures the value of life. Western life, and even that's changing, funny enough, by the way, that is changing a bit, but nonetheless, historically, how many Palestinians die, and it doesn't even, unless it's a really, really big number, it never makes the news. But if one American, like say Rachel Corrie, but even that they'll suppress. The bottom line is, I put the argument forward, which is indisputable, that we don't value life equally. Western lives are more valuable than Iraqi lives in this case. So if we really want to stop the invasion of Iraq, then we need to go down to Iraq. I called for a mass migration to Iraq, and to position ourselves in places that are supposed to be protected by the Geneva Conventions, specifically electrical power plants, water treatment facilities, communication sites, and food storage. All of these places are just bombed as a matter of routine. The first Gulf War that I was in, we completely destroyed Iraq, completely, like devastated it. The whole entire infrastructure, like Gaza, basically, was destroyed, which means all the children are going to die from waterborne diseases and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I said, if we really want to stop the invasion of Iraq, then we, Western citizens, need to get down to Iraq. I called for 10,000. There was about 500 at its max. At first, it was just crazy me saying, I'm doing it, I'm going. I can't sit by and watch this and do nothing. So I did it, and then other people joined, and we drove 3 double-decker buses, and we did it. Bottom line is, I watched that get infiltrated and subverted with democracy. Now the leader, who was me, became just another participant, and I had to sit in endless debates amongst mindless people who knew nothing about strategy, and who many of them were actually my enemy, coming as volunteers, quote unquote. Anyway, I had just finished that. Saddam Hussein literally saved my life because he kicked me out of the country because I was posing problems for the way the human shields were meant to be used. That's a whole book in itself. So I had just come back, and when I came back, they asked me, what's next? And I said, Palestine. I'm going to Palestine. Something called me to Palestine, and I knew I was going. So I did. I went to the West Bank in 2003, and when I was in the West Bank, I came over Allenby Bridge. That's an interesting story. The Sheikh talks about General Allenby. And while I was in the West Bank, I experienced all that, but I also had access to Israel, so I want to go see for myself. I want to see how these people are. I ended up almost making it into Gaza. I tried. Again, it's a whole story. It's longer than I can explain here, but the bottom line is I ended up in Israeli prison later on down the road when after that, in the Mavi Marmara, we all got kidnapped on the Mavi Marmara, and then we got taken to Ashdod. And everybody, it became bad PR for them. And they built us a new prison and everything, like literally. We got put in a new prison. And it was looking so bad, so they were like in an immediate rush to get everybody out of there. Most all of them were Turks and other Muslims from various countries, but mostly Turks. And they were all very happy to leave, but I, being me, refused to leave. I said, no, I'm not going. I want my Israeli justice. Go on, I want my trial. You kidnapped me. Oh, by the way, you want to deport me? Here's my Palestinian passport. So deport me to Gaza, which is where I was going. And I actually threw away my Irish passport. I still haven't got it back, by the way. Anyway. Point is, crazy me, all the Turks and all of them, including the captain of the Mavi Marmara, Bülent Yıldırım, the founder of IHH, IHH, they were all leaving. Some of them were borderline crying, like, wait, that's the guy who disarmed 2 commandos, and now he's refusing to leave, and we're all leaving. They felt a little bit guilty that I was staying behind. And there was one other guy, an Irish guy, and he refused. He did it with me, so it was like, everybody left, and it was just me and him. And I looked at my friend, I said, oh, this is gonna be fun. We're sitting there alone with we've got more guards than us. one thing led to another, and they ended up telling us they were relocating us. They ended up taking to Ben Gurion Airport, which God bless Yemen, God bless Ansar Allah. They hit Ben Gurion again. God bless them. Anyway, while I'm there, they're abusing some guy that I knew, Paul LaRudy. He was already bruised, and they were rough handling him, and everybody got up, including the captain and Bülent Yildirim. I was with them now. And everybody got up and was shouting, protesting against what they were doing, and the Israeli police came up to us, and they started yelling at us to sit down, and of course, me being me, I was like, you know, I'm not going to use the language I used, but let's just say it was very rude, very offensive. And next thing you know, I get whacked over the head, which, I don't know, I got a chin, man. Nobody's been able to knock me out yet, so I've got blood gushing down my face, and I'm saying, I can't use the language. Anyway, I'm basically calling this, whatever, coward. Let's use that word. Like, big butt, you know, like, and next thing you know, they charge me because I'm refusing to get down, and I've got blood all over me. I've got the blood of the martyrs on my clothes. I haven't showered now for like 3 days. I'm stinky, I'm sweaty, I'm bloody, and now my whole face is full of blood. And next thing you know, they charge me, and they start kicking and punching me. And whatever, man, I'm up for a fight, so we're going. And one of the Israelis actually got me in a chokehold from behind. I couldn't breathe, and I'm getting kicked and punched, and I'm still resisting. But I got to a point, actually, where I'm on the ground now, being hit from everywhere. And I know I'm a breath hold diver. I knew, like, okay, I'm getting close to blackout, and if this guy doesn't let go, I don't know if I'm gonna make it, man. So I went limp before I knew I was just about it, before I blacked out. And to the Israeli, to his credit, he let me go. I don't know if he was afraid, like, I don't know, this might not look good. This is gonna be hard to cover up. We've got a bunch of witnesses here. But they did, they let me go. Next thing you know, I'm being put in the jail, and everybody's gone. So now I'm truly the only one there. The only people there are the injured ones who weren't able to be shipped out yet, and they couldn't be, so like it was only me. And I'm in Ben Gurion Airport, and so I get beaten up again while I'm in there, and I'm on a hunger strike, and they bring me some food, and I take my food. Literally, I'm cuffed, but I take my food, and I pick it up and I put it through the little slot in the cage, and I take it and I put it out and I flip it up and I splash the food everywhere. And the guard comes in. This is where I'm getting to the satanic phallic worship cult here. He comes in, and he's just typical Israeli. They're all cowards. And I'm just being me again, and I'm like, he's telling me I'm gonna clean it up. You're gonna clean it up? I said, you clean it up. I ain't cleaning up anything. You brought it, I told you ain't eating. You clean it up. Go on, do your business. Anyway, he got so angry with me, he opened up the cell, and he came in, and he hit me a bit more and whatnot. And he literally, okay, so this is where I have to be really careful about what he did. Okay, let's just say that he unzipped his pants, and he took out his private part, and he put it near my face. And I literally, these are my exact words, I said, if you put that anywhere near my mouth, you ain't getting it back. So yeah, satanic, Luciferian, phallic, yeah, no, I've dealt with them, direct. Funny enough, the commandant of the jail found out about this, because if nothing else, people do know who I am, even back then. This is 2008 or 10. The commandant called me into his personal space. I'm looking at all these Star of Remphan, Zionist, satanic symbols and awards and everything. He's literally kissing my butt. Can I get you some coffee or tea or anything? I've got all this blood on me and all this kind of stuff, and they're now like, they're worried about, like, okay, this really doesn't look good. And he got the Israeli ambassador on the line to beg me to wash my face. And I said, you know, with all due respect, no. All I have now, they've stolen everything. I've got these bloody clothes and my bloody face, and I'm keeping it just the way it is. So I didn't wash my face, and they were forced to put me on a Turkish Airlines flight back after all this. Put me on a flight back. Can you imagine getting on a flight? They put me in first class, literally. I've got blood all over me. My face is full of caked on blood. I'm sweaty, I'm stinky, and I'm sitting in first class. I'm the first one on the plane, and every single person is walking by me, looking at me, and I swear to God, it was like the funniest thing ever. Like, I have some unique stories, that's one of them, and that's my experience with them. Fear is what they're banking on. And if you're ready to die, as the Sheikh said, you know, if you're serving God, why would you be afraid to die in a noble fight? What you should be afraid of is God's wrath if you don't do what you need to do. That's what you should be afraid of. So anyway, yeah, that's my little story. That was a bit long, but nonetheless. Thank you for the question. I did not think that I would tell that story, but there you go.
Okay, we have the last question to Maulana.
Will NATO invoke Article 5 on Afghanistan in the future? NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Afghanistan is located in a region of the world far removed from the North Atlantic. I do not see any possibility of Afghanistan launching attack on any NATO country.